Welcome to this episode of the Route 281 podcast, where I sit down with Joe Kozuch, and I can assure you that he is not your average Joe. He is a corporal in the Pennsylvania State Police Department, and he's also an Iraq War veteran. And we are thankful for his service and grateful to spend some time with him and get to know him a little bit better. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, we should be rocking and rolling. Yeah, this was just pull that mic up to you, and you can adjust it however you want. So that's, you put these on, you can hear yourself so much better, and it kind of blocks everything out. I don't know, I kind of like them. Make us look legit anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was added on. Her grandma added on. There used to be a sliding glass door there, which I actually wish was still there because I could block out all that noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought I may have to do something, or I may move this to the basement, but it works for now. Anyway, episode number 2. Joe Kozuch, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So I'll just do a real quick introduction. You're a state trooper with the Somerset Police Barracks?
That is correct.
Okay. And a Army veteran?
That is correct.
Okay. Husband and father?
That is correct. So
if I'm missing anything, like a former professional athlete or Olympian or anything like that, I mean, anything, you can go into a little bit about what you do at the department. But yeah, here in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, where we live, that's where you operate out of.
That is correct. Yep.
Cool. So, yeah, man, I just grateful you're here. Just grateful for what you and guys that work in there do. I always tell, and I've told Bruno this before. You guys are ever out late and you stop in for a cup of coffee or something like that, man, our door's always open.
I appreciate it.
And I know so many of my buddies are the same way, and they definitely are supportive of the state police. And I think that's probably the most case in an area like we live. It's a blue collar area, and people appreciate anybody that would step in harm's way for somebody else. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, thanks, man, for serving. We'll start off with the Army career. To me, I think that's awesome. You can talk a little bit about when you got in, where you were in the Army, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, I just think that process as a young man trying to figure that out, kudos. Wasn't really something on my radar when I was very young. I was interested in the Air Force, but I had asthma. I thought, they'll never let me in. And I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm sure there's certain stipulations, but then whenever I turned 35, I'm like, I want to. My time was running out.
Yeah.
And so I looked up the reserves, National Guard.
Okay.
And you can get in by the time you're 35. So I got real serious about it, and I was looking and talked to the recruiter up in Johnstown, and I decided I wasn't going to do it, so I let that go. Then it came back. I'm like, oh man, my urge, the itch, and I was like, I don't know what movie I must have been watching at the time, but whatever. So then I actually looked at the Navy, because the Navy you could get in, I think, up until 39, the reserves.
Okay.
Met with those recruiters in the Starbucks in Somerset for 2 hours, and we talked. And
wow.
I was pretty serious, and then just decided that my place to serve was here at home with my kids. But certainly glad you did, so you can talk a little bit about that. Just tell us what led you to make that decision. What was the time period and how all that went down.
Yes, it was a unique time frame. Growing up, my mom, she worked down at Conwell there for 41 years, so I had the healthcare side on that. My father was a self-employed contractor there for 40-some years as well. So I got to see that side of it as well. I started at an early age, always kind of looking up and admiring the state police, looking at them guys and as a figure and a semi role model, and I thought that would be a noble profession to go into. And as I grew older and started seeing the cost of stuff and everything else there, and my mom having a background in the healthcare, she switched over to more of an administrative position there towards the end of her career. And I always remember her talking about how expensive health insurance was and everything else there. And I knew from a pretty young age that, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids and a family, and I wanted to have a larger family than I did now. But regardless, I knew I wanted to have children and stuff like that. And that came with an expense.
Yeah. Yes,
so it was, it was one of the things. So it was like, I'm looking at my father and looking what he did and how he made, and there's a lot of unknowns for me at that time. It's, is work always going to be there? Are you always going to get paid? Are you going to get this? Are guys going to show up? Are you going to have this and that? So there's a lot of unknowns. And
you were toying with the idea of going into like the family business.
Correct. Yes, and staying on board there with my dad and stuff like that. But it's like, man, it's a lot of unknowns right now. And I knew my mom. She always you'd hear her saying, the cost of health insurance and how it's going to continue to grow and stuff like that. And I'm like, probably ought to look at something that's a little bit more concrete,
right.
More stability, and not that anything's a guarantee, but the best guarantee you can out there. And I said, I liked the state police. I liked what they did. I liked to be able to have the opportunity to help and serve people and stuff like that. And it's like, they got a retirement system that's good. They got a good healthcare plan and stuff like that. And I'm like, that really goes a long way, at least for me at the time. So, not knowing a lot about the state police, you hear stigmas of, a young white guy is a disadvantage going in. They wanted certain people. So it's like, hey, you need to have a military background to get these 10 extra points to help you boost along your process and to have a status of a veteran or a prior service member or something like that to help boost you along. So that kind of got me going along with the military program, because unfortunately both my grandfathers passed away when I was very young. I got to obviously have conversations with them, but not to the degree that I would have liked to have had. Understanding what they did in their theaters of operation in World War II, their service, they were both Army veterans and stuff like that. I never got to have it. So I never had that. There was a generational gap there with my father and stuff like that. They weren't prior service. So I didn't have a lot of military background and a lot of knowledge about it. So I started thinking more about, maybe pursuing a career in the state police, but, probably taking the route of going to the military first to get that background experience, the preference points and stuff like that. So that kind of got the ball rolling in that direction. So then 9/11 comes along. I'm 16 years old. I'm in high school at the time, and Tuesday hits and it's 9/11. It's an indescribable feeling that I felt overcome me that day, and it was like, the words of Todd Beamer from the Flight 93, "Let's roll."
Yeah.
That really stuck with me. So it's like, all right, I'm doing this. So I don't talk to my parents about this. At the time, there was a recruiter station. I was in there where the Med Express is there on North Center Avenue in that little strip mall there. There was a recruiting station in there. So I leave school one day, end up driving and stopping by there. And I talked to this guy for a while, and he's like, you can sign up when you're 17. Your parents have to co-sign for you and everything else, and we can get you rolling. It's called an early entry program is what it was. So you could sign up when you were 17, and basically what you did is you went to basic training between your junior and senior year of high school. You came back and did your senior year of high school, and then you got shipped back off to what they call like your MOS training, which is your military specialty, whatever it was going to be. So I talked to this gentleman for a while. He says, hey, you got to come over and sit down with your parents and stuff like that.
He come to your house?
Yeah, so later on we set up an appointment there. So I said, okay. So I go home and break the news to them that, hey, I saw and talked to this recruiter. Now, again, this is December of 2001, just after 9/11. So they're there. I could tell they were not displeased with the decision, but they were reluctant to want to have to do it. But again, just like any parent or most parents would be, they were supportive. That was the decision I made. And at that time, obviously,
it was a big decision for a 16-year-old kid to make.
It was, and that was, and I thought about it a lot, and it took a little while to build up the courage to go there to do that. Because I had no idea. I was going in there blind. I didn't have a grandfather or uncle or dad or something that was in, and at that time you still had dial-up internet. It wasn't like we have it now, where I could sit here and watch videos on YouTube and educate myself and stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge, and we were busy, and I worked a lot as a kid and stuff like that. So I winged it, and so I'm going to go and talk to him. And I talked to the guy, and that guy spent a lot of his time as a tanker, and his classification was a 19 kilo. So he kind of sold me on that. It was interesting. It sounded interesting. I grew up operating some equipment that my father had and stuff like that. So it was neat. He's like, it sounds cool. We drive tanks and stuff like that. So he talked me into going into the tank division at that point in time. So I come home and break the news to my parents that, I'd talk to this recruiter, and this guy's going to be coming over, and, we're going to have to sit down and do this other stuff and everything else there. So I can still remember us sitting there at the kitchen table like it was yesterday there. I'm looking around, and he's saying all this stuff, and I got to go do this, and I got to do that, and you got to sign here and everything else there. And I can just see the wheels turn in my parents' eyes like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is really what you want to do? And everything else there. But so I did, and, we signed everything, and I got in right then in December of 2001. Like I said, I went the basic training there between my junior and senior year. I came back, and we were at a unique time too in the school system there. The teachers had gone on strike for a couple years in a row in there at Somerset.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I would have been not in the area at the time, so I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, so we ended up going pretty much close to about June 30th. There was, I think, the max that they could hold us till there. So they struck at the beginning of the year, and then we went to almost June 30th there. So at that point in time, I already had my orders cut to be down at Fort Knox. So that was my first duty station there, was down at Fort Knox.
So where did you do your basic training?
That was at Fort Knox.
Oh, at Fort Knox, okay.
Yep, so that's where basic training was, and that's where I went back then the following summer then for my job training for that. So I ended up, like I said, I had my orders cut there. I head out June 1st, get down there and get settled in, do my basic training there between my junior and senior year, come back, start into my senior year. Again, they had went on strike there at the beginning of the year. Again, I had my orders cut. They always cut them for June 1st to be back down at Fort Knox there for my job training. So I ended up missing about the last 30 days of school, missed graduation, all that stuff that goes on.
So were you able to just, you were done with school, you were able to graduate, you didn't have to do a GED or anything?
No. And they had knew, like the teachers and the principal, they were all on board with that. And they knew that was my plan and what I wanted to go and do. And
were they supportive? And,
correct.
Yeah, that's nice.
Absolutely. And, and they made sure I got all my work done in advance there and everything else there, and everything was good to go there. So, I had plenty of time to wrap all that stuff up there. So I got all my stuff done prior to heading back out. So, like I said, that was from 02 in there, and then I go back and I graduate I left in June of 03. I go back, and then we have, each job training is different. Some can be 6 weeks long, some can be 8 weeks long, some can be 12 weeks long, depending on what type of thing there. So,
right.
You're looking at an 8 to 10 week, I think it was, there for the job training for the tanks to get the initial training. And then, like I said, it's just like anything else. It's like a job then, and you roll into day-to-day operations at that point in time. So I go back and do that. That's
you have to, like with tanks. So did you have to specialize in a certain part of the tank? There's a guy that drives it, guys that running the gun.
Yeah. So eventually you work your way up. You start out as what they call like the loader of the tank. So you load the rounds in there. You're inside the turret itself there. Mm-hmm. You're loading some rounds, helping some other stuff. Then you can work down to a driver. Then you work down to a gunner. The gunner is the one that runs the whole thing there. And then they have a tank commander who is in charge of making all the operations inside the tank there. He tells you which rounds the fire and what direction, at what capacity, and what direction to move to, and everything like that. So
fascinating.
yeah, it was neat.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. Like I said, they were a large piece of equipment to operate there. It was neat to do that stuff, but it was like one of the things as time went on, I was like, okay, we did a 3 or 4 day exercise. Well, now you're doing 2 weeks of track maintenance and maintenance on the tank and this and that and everything else, because everything's done by hand.
Yeah.
For that. So now this is going in from '03, now we're going into '04, and we start to train up for mobilization at that point in time there. So I'm getting ready, we get our orders cut, told that we're going over to Iraq to be part of close to the initial wave there. I mean, they've already made wave there, but it was still very early on, what they called the first wave of things there. So we get orders cut, we get over into Kuwait, and get paired up there, and it classifies as mobilized infantry at that point in time, because they don't have a lot of equipment over there still at that time. So you're kind of scrapping around, getting different things and everything like that. So we had these Humvees there that weren't up armored or anything like they are now. So we spent about 2 weeks down in Kuwait, I'll say acquiring material, mainly steel, from buildings or whatever we could find, and we're there bolting it onto the side of these Humvees and stuff like that, filling our own sandbags and lining them inside the Humvee and stuff like that to make it as up armor as we could. Because like I said, this is in '04.
Just make MacGyvering that thing to make it semi-bulletproof.
Yeah, the best you could.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because like I said, the days of having all this up armor technology and everything else, I mean, it just wasn't there at that point.
Now, did they give you guys a little bit of had somebody done this before? You're like, hey, look at this one and try to copy what we did here, or are they letting you kind of figuring it out as you go?
Most of it was figuring out as we went. So I had a platoon sergeant there. He was a Desert Storm vet at that point in time, so he had already been overseas there and been in combat as well before. So he kind of knew what was needed and stuff like that. So we took a lot of direction and guidance from him on, hey, this is how a lot of these attacks go, and this is what you need to have, and the best way to prepare ourselves and to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, at that time period, I could imagine that your parents were a little nervous about sending you over there. So you're into this. How long before you get your deployment orders to go to Iraq? You're in about 2 years into it?
Yeah, from the time I signed the papers till I get in there, but most of that was just getting through basic training, because I did that split option program there. So like I said, I signed in December of '01, and then there in the beginning of 2004, then we're heading overseas there at that point.
You had to know at that time that there's a pretty good chance that you're to get deployed, or don't you really know whenever you...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at that point in time, obviously 9/11 hit. We were actively pursuing, we knew that it was a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be some sort of repercussion. And I signed up for what they call a combat MOS. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like I went into accounting and I'm going to stay stateside doing something.
Right.
I knew going in that I picked what was classified as a combat MOS. So it wasn't a question of when you were going. It's just or if you were going, it's just when you were going to go.
So you knew what you were getting into. And
yeah, I did.
Yeah, well, maybe you didn't know completely what you were getting into, and we can talk about that. But you knew that you wanted to be into combat. You wanted to see,
Correct, yeah. And like I said, it was just that, going back to that whole day of 9/11, like I said, that watching that plane fly into the World Trade Center, and then the second one fly in there, it's like, there's no way. And I'm like, this can't happen on the greatest nation in the world. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not letting this happen here.
Yeah.
You hear these guys talk about, I'd rather be on somebody else's turf than my turf. And that was kind of the mentality that I adopted. And with that, it's like, we're keeping it overseas and we're not bringing it here. Yeah. This is a great place.
You hear that, and I hear that, but to sit with somebody that made that decision because of that, and I feel like you mean it 100%. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, and it was neat, looking back on it now, because, obviously now you're older and you look at 16-year-olds now and you try to rationalize yourself as them, as like, what decisions I was making at 16 years old versus what kids nowadays at 16 are making. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a different mindset.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's going to swing back around.
I hope so.
Yeah. I I don't know. Yeah, I hope so too. I'm trying to raise daughters, and I hope that there's some quality young men coming up the pipeline, because nobody will be good enough. You got daughters also.
That's correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But you know the kind of guy that you hope that they marry someday.
Absolutely.
So, but anyway, so you're over there.
So we spent some time. Like I said, it's about 2 weeks in Kuwait there, and then we start what we call our initial movement into theater at that point in time. So it's a road march. We're in different equipment there. We got trucks, tankers, Humvees, tanks, all that stuff there, and we're making our way up there. Our first initial assignment was up in Beiji, Iraq, which was in the northern part of Iraq at that point in time. It was about 15 miles north of Saddam's hometown there in Tikrit. So, like I said, it was a 2-day movement for us to get up there, because, like I said, these aren't getting on a turnpike and setting a cruise control at 85 miles an hour and cruising up there. I mean, you're moving slow. You got heavy equipment with you. You're getting hostile fire put at you, so that's delaying you. Equipment breaking down and everything in there. So, like I said, it's just it was a slow, methodical movement to get up there to that base.
You said it took 2 days?
Correct.
So
yeah.
do you stop, or you plug away for 48 hours?
No, we stayed over. Like I said, there was bases along the way there, and like I said, as we worked our way up through, you'd stop over there and get fuel and some food and stuff like that, and water, whatever you would, and you grab an hour or two of sleep. Either sitting in the Humvee or laying in the back of the tank or something like that, or whatever you could get spread out at. Try to get a little bit of sleep here and there.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So whenever you got over there, had you been out of the country before that?
No, I had not.
So it's your first experience being outside the country.
Correct.
What was that? Was it a little shocking?
It was, yeah. Like I said, just the whole being on a plane for almost 20-some hours over there, because you had... I think at that time we flew on to Texas, to Germany. I think it was like 12-some hours at that time.
Was that a military flight?
Yeah. Well, we took an Airbus. It was a commercial flight over there. They used. Gotcha. I mean, it was all military on there, but it was a commercial airliner there. They called them one of them Airbuses there. They used like the double-decker type deal.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, I at that age, I mean, you're growing still, and I'm thinking like, okay, you did your basic training, and I had some questions about basic, for young men and women watching, or just want to know what's it like the day you step foot on basic training.
Yeah, so unfortunately, times have changed drastically from when it was then, in 2001, 2002 to what it is these days. It was a high-speed, stressful situation, which, again, going back to looking at, why it's there, I mean, it's designed for a reason, to be stressful, to be enduring and everything else there, because they are preparing you, and especially at that time, I mean, because, it was a question just how soon you were going to be going over to combat. So, they wanted to prepare you the best they could in a quote-unquote controlled environment before you got over to where it wasn't. So, you know what I mean? I can still remember getting off the thing there and getting on the bus, and, these drill sergeants are there. I mean, they're just going bananas. I mean, they're just screaming at you. They're in your face. At that time, they were allowed to hit you. So, I mean, they weren't physically assaulting you, but, I mean, they're checking you and stuff like that, and grabbing hold of you and yanking you around, shoving you on the ground and screaming at you and on top of you. And, they got big chews in, and they're spitting in your face. I mean, not intentionally, but I mean, you got snuff and everything else there. So, I mean, they're up in you and stuff like that. So,
were you somewhat prepared? Did you mentally try to prepare? Like, this is what I can expect, or was it worse than you expected? Or
yeah, I mean, you mentally try to prepare as best you can, but it was like, it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? Like I said, it was long days. At first, it was like, you have obviously that initial, like, what the heck did I just get myself into here? This is crazy. All my buddies are back home. They're playing baseball. They're going to the beach. They're doing this and that. Here I am. I got some 40-year-old dude that's kicking sand in my face as I'm laying here. I've been out here for 3 hours rolling back and forth, doing front back goes, push-ups, this and that. I'm soaking wet. I ran 8 miles this morning, and here we are. We've been up in they call them the pits. They were just big open buildings there with a roof on. They were just all like sawdust and stuff, and that's where they call it smoking. They would take you in there, and it was just all physical stuff,
Yeah.
Push-ups and sit-ups and front back goes and flutter kicks, and then you'd roll left and you'd roll right and you'd be up and down and this and that and just whatever they wanted you to do, and there you are. But it's like, then, as soon as I started to feel bad for myself. It's like, hey, idiot, like, you're the one that wanted to do this. Like, you did it, so man up and do it. Like I said, nobody held a gun to my head. I chose to do this, so, you're getting through it. So
Yeah.
I did, and and I'm very thankful that I did make that decision and do that. But yeah, like I said, it was neat there. Them first probably 4 weeks were very high intense. Like I said, that was to weed out, and again, it's just like any other academy. It's to weed out the individuals that aren't designed to be there, to get these people in a right mindset that you're not at your mom and dad's house anymore. You're in reality, and you're doing some real life stuff here it's going to get serious pretty quick with that. So once we weeded that out, the tone stepped down there, and then it's like, hey, now we're going to move on to getting you trained. We broke you. We have you to where you understand that, we're in charge and we're going to make the decisions, and now we're going to build you back up, the way we want you to do that. So, we're going to teach you this and we're going to teach you that. But, then it progressed to learning, hey, this is how you're going to shoot this way, and you're going to do this that way, and you're going to operate this way, and this is how you guys are going to move as a group, and this is going to have to move as an individual, and you're going to have to move as a team like this. And, so they started into that teaching process. So the yelling and screaming and all that stuff, it dwindled down after about 4 weeks or so, and then it, not that it didn't continue on there. Like I said, obviously if we messed up as a group or a platoon or something like that, like, we paid for it in there, or if we didn't pass inspection or whatever went on there, which, them were few and far between as well. There was always something they could find, or, a wrinkle in your bed or a piece of dust, or, something they didn't like the way your boot wasn't shined perfect enough or whatever. But it was all a mental game.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to. It's just understanding that this is just mental stuff here, and they want to see if you're going to be able to operate under a high stress level.
Yeah.
And that's with a lot of the stuff. And even continuing on to what I do now, with the academy that I went to there for the state police, it's at the beginning, that's how it's designed as well, to make sure that you're going to be able to operate under high stress levels and be able to think rationally and make the best educated decision you could at that time. Yeah. So,
man, yeah, I guess I've always wondered what it would be like. Whenever I was interested at the age of 35, I had YouTube. I could get on and see what the Naval Academy up in, I think it's somewhere in the Great Lakes. Anyway, you could see what basic was going to be like. You may wouldn't walk through the whole thing, but you could.
Correct.
But you didn't have that then. So what was the atmosphere like amongst new recruits or the guys and gals that you were in there with? Do you quickly kind of find your people?
You did.
Is everybody, you're just an individual, but do you have time to find like-minded individuals?
You do, and like I said, it was one of the things you quickly, because you're with these people 18 hours out of the day, like you're getting minimal sleep, you're up doing that, so, you quickly adapt to the people there, but, and that was the other neat thing, too, looking back on it, was like, I met people from all over the United States, different cultures, different backgrounds, nationalities, and everything, so you got to learn a lot, see how other people operate and stuff like that. We went on a lot of family vacations growing up. We went to the beach and this and that and everything else there, but we stayed together as a family, and you didn't really know a lot outside of Somerset, so it was neat to see how other people were brought up and everything else with that. But, yeah, you quickly did. You could see, I don't want to say who the weak people were, but, people that were struggling. It's like, well, I don't want to be paired up with him. This guy, he seems to be about on the same wavelength as me. We're getting along, so you paired up with him to have like a quote unquote battle buddy.
Yeah.
That you would have paired up with there. So.
Do you do group exercises so where like you all have to exceed, or?
Oh yeah.
So you want to make sure you got some good ones on your team.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I still remember one thing very vividly from basic training there. They had us low crawling, and they called it our parade field. It was a big grass field between our big bunkhouses out there where we stayed. And, we did a lot of drill and ceremony. That's our marching techniques. We would practice out there. And they had us low crawling from one end to the other. And it was probably, I don't know, a football field and a half or so long in between there. And, and they would start out like, first person down here, you're done. And so then everybody's just racing like a maniac, low crawling, the whole way down through there. And then you get down the end, and it's like, okay, first person back, you get this, and everything else. Well, after about the third or fourth time, it started to click that nobody was getting anything, and they wanted you to operate as a team.
Yeah.
And that's when the whole team building and operating as a team in a unit clicked. And then it's like, okay, now if we all do this together consecutively, then we'll be done. Yeah. And then, it took a while for us to catch. But again, most of us are 16, 17 years old at this time. You know what I mean? So, you're still semi-immature, at that point in time and everything else there. And, you're not really thinking and looking at the bigger picture down the road of what's going on and why they're trying to establish this stuff there. But, yeah, like I said, once it clicked we need to be this as a team. We're out here doing this team thing. It did. So then once we slowed down and everybody did it at the slowest person's rate and we finished together, then we finally realized that then we're done, and they let us get back up at that point in time.
Do they quickly try to find leaders?
They do, and they it's just like anything else. I mean, you're sizing people up in your profiling and stuff like that, and you can see. I mean, just how you carry yourself and everything else and present yourself in there. Not everybody was there. I would like to think that most people were there because they wanted to be there, but maybe some people were just guilted in because, it was a family tradition. Everybody from grandpa down through was there, and you're going, whether they wanted to be. So you could tell them people that weren't there versus the people like, I don't want to say myself an example, but that wanted to truly be there. I mean, there was some distinguishation between them for sure.
Yeah. How was the food?
From what I remember, it was edible. I still have bad tendencies of eating super fast. I've always eaten very fast, and that was just one of the things you had sometimes a minute or so to eat, and that was it. So, I mean, you're stuffing it down, but you were usually so depleted because, like I said, I mean, you were up between 4 and 5, and you were out doing a couple-mile run, and then you'd be doing a whole bunch of calisthenics and different exercises and this and that. So you were depleted. So you wanted as much food as you could. So I mean,
care what it tasted
like. It didn't really matter. I mean, you were eating it, but like I said, no. Was it the greatest stuff ever? No, it wasn't. But it was edible, for sure. But I can remember the coffee. It sucked. I still consider it to be like 30 weight motor oil. Like I said, I mean, that stuff coming out, it was like real thick and heavy there. Because a lot of that stuff was just concentrated stuff that they just put in. So it was like, bag of, it was just liquid coffee that they would dump in a big plastic tub there with hot water and stuff like that. And so,
yeah. I mean, because I could imagine to a young kid. I mean, it's not everything, but it's probably important, when you get there, like, oh, your parents were worried. What are they feeding you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why I said, like, it's drastically changed from back then. So again, back then we didn't have phones or nothing like that.
Right.
You could buy a calling card because they would have a bank of payphones down there. So, there might be 30 payphones at the far end of the thing, and you got, each person got 5 minutes. Well, it took you 3.5 minutes to enter in, 27 numbers on this calling card, because you had to dial and then you had to wait for the thing to get through and everything else there. So, it was a different time. So a lot of stuff was done by writing, you wrote letters back then, you'd write when you had some downtime and, my parents, I was grateful for my mother and them. That wrote and stuff like that, so you enjoyed to get the mail there. Where now, like I said, these individuals, they have cell phones there, they have laptops, they have their tablets, whatever it is. So there's direct communication on a daily basis with their families. Where there, you were at the mercy of, hey, it might be a week or two till you could call, or a couple weeks, or this or that. So there was nothing to guarantee back then versus now.
That's probably a good thing in a way. I mean, because that way you could. I think if you had that chance to connect constantly, it might be distracting, or you might think about it more. If you're somebody who misses home, it'd be easier knowing that, I could make a phone call. But if you want to go there and just really be focused and kind of forget about it and focus on what you're doing, it'd be easier to do at that time.
Yeah, you don't have the distractions you do, like I said, versus having your phone there or worrying about, you're going to FaceTime somebody tonight or this. You didn't. you knew it was going to be probably next weekend or 2 weeks from now till you got back down to the phone booth to make a phone call. So you didn't worry about it.
Oh, well, you said it's different than it was different then than it is now. What do you think's changed in the way that they conduct?
Well, I think just society itself is more conducive to this kinder, gentler society there, and and unfortunately, I don't know firsthand, but I've heard that the military has changed. I know the Army has implemented, what they call these stress cards now, where if individuals feel that they're being stressed out or being yelled at excessively, that they pull these cards out and they're allowed to take time off and go into an area and decompress and stuff like that. They're not allowed to go hands on to these individuals anymore. Pretty much the swearing and everything else there has ceased as well there. So it's more of like an academy lifestyle than it is actual boot camp there. Where, you had the old school drill sergeants yelling and screaming, kicking, doing all this other stuff there, just constantly nagging at you and doing that. Kind of like you see on TV there. It's just they're going 100 miles an hour, you're going 100 miles an hour, But like I said, now a lot of that has changed, with this technology. They have everything at their thing, and now, like I said, you can't be stressing these people out and stuff like that, which,
Well, it may not be doing them any favors, so...
Yeah, it's not, and and that's my personal opinion, you know what I mean? Like I said, you're going there for that reason, like I said, to potentially go over, like I said, obviously we're not in any type of conflict right now where, you're going to be training up to go to a battle, but... Again, you're in some sort of military atmosphere where you may be called upon to do that. And like I said, the enemy doesn't care, what your feelings are at that point in time. Right. It's fight or flight and survive.
How do you feel about Pete Hegseth becoming Secretary of Defense?
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he's a phenomenal leader. I'm glad he's in there. I think he's going to do a great job.
Think he'll put some of that old school mentality kind of back into
it. That's what he seems to be, and that's a lot of what he approached. I know going into it was bringing back the morals and stuff like that, and going back to putting boots on the ground, taking care of our guys and stuff like that, which is what we need. Versus more of the you're a number versus you're an actual person type deal.
Were you guys serving about the same time? I don't really know how.
Pete. I forget when Pete got in. Pete had a break in there. I know he was in early on, and then he got out, and then I think he got back in around 2012 for a while, and up until like 18 or 19, I think. And then,
that's awesome. I'm excited about it. I'm glad. I like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kash Patel getting into the FBI. I don't know how familiar you are with him. I see good things on the horizon. At least get back to some common sense type of approach to government.
Yeah.
We went over the military career pretty well. I just want to make sure. You said you were in Iraq. I wanted to find out where, I guess, really the last thing I have on the military side is, how long did you serve, and what led you to get out, and really to transition from military back to home, and why not stay in the military, I guess.
So again, going back to my initial goal was obviously to get into the state police. That was a goal I'd set early on, and wanted to fulfill that dream. But it's like, hey, I got to go in. I'm going to do my time in the Army. My contract at that time, I signed was what they called 6x2. It was 6 active and 2 in the inactive ready reserves, which they called the IRR. So that was basically, hey, your name gets put on a list of a recently dismissed member or discharged member, and if we need guys to backfill a company that's getting ready to deploy, since you recently got out and are still fairly trained up on stuff, we're going to throw you right into rotation.
Okay.
For that. So
that's fairly rare, isn't it?
It is. It had happened a couple times though.
Okay.
Like I said, especially as the war progressed there.
It happened to you?
No, not for me. But like I said, I'm getting guys called back. So yeah, like I said, I did a 6-year thing. So I went in 01, got out in 07. So like I said, we get out back from deployment there towards the end of 05. At that point in time,
How long were you over there then? For
our total deployment was 18 months.
Wow.
We were gone, yeah, and that was a couple month train up. We were in theater just about a year, for a whole year there for that.
I guess I should ask before we move on to the state police. Any real intense battles, anything like that?
Yeah, we had a fair amount. I mean, like I said, it was very active at that point in time. We've had stuff that started on day 2, and again, going back to that mindset, mentally preparing yourself. So here you are, you're 18 years old. We were out in Texas at that point in time, doing a train up out there. They had a big train up center there, and they're trying to prepare for this stuff. And they have mock stuff set up there, and again, you can anticipate that. So it's like trying to appreciate it to being as real as it's going to be. But it's like, I still remember the first day there. Like I said, we're on, the morning of day 2, and we're going up through there, and we start getting hit by RPG fire, and it's like, this is the real deal now. We're laying out there, and this isn't a joke anymore. So
you're practicing, or you're doing what you trained to do.
Yeah. So like I said, that's when everything kind of kicked in. It's like, this is the real deal now. So
they ever get you any tanks, or were you constantly in Humvees?
We were mostly Humvees there. So, back to that, I should finish up with that. So I spent my first 3 years on tanks, but like I said, as we were over there and did a lot more of this infantry stuff, I met some guys over there that were infantry right on the gate, and I'm like, that sounds cool. And, they were doing a lot more high-speed stuff and everything else there. And I started looking into these Army Rangers and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'd really like to do that. They do a lot of high speed stuff and everything else there. So I ended up switching to MOSs then, and I went to infantry school then, and finished out my last 3 years as 11 Bravo as an infantryman for that. Yeah, so
you're carrying an M4.
Yeah, well, at that time it was an M16. Yeah. Okay. So they had some M4s then, but a lot of us still had M16s. Yeah. We had a few M4s in there. That was when they were just starting to come out with them as well.
Now, what's the difference? What's the difference between the two? There's not much difference, right?
No, most of it's just barrel length. It's more like the M4 is more of a condensed collapsible stock and everything else. They're a shorter barrel. I think they're down to like, I think a 16-inch barrel or something roughly around there. So it's a couple inches shorter with that as well there. So,
okay. And then so you decide. So your plan was you were sticking to your plan that it was to get out to go to police academy. You did
correct.
For 6 years. You ended. Did you end your service at the end of your deployment, or when you came back? Did you have some?
Yeah, I had a little bit of time whenever I got back there. So. Again, I'm still, as things went through and, I started getting more and more involved in the Army, I'm like, this isn't a bad thing either. Like once I got in and I started really enjoying it, and I'm like, once I switched over to the infantry, and I'm like, I like to be this ranger and stuff like that. But, I still had that in the back of my head, like, hey, I want to be, try the state police out. And I knew some people. My mom's cousin was on a job at the time. So I had a little bit of knowledge about it, and I heard some stories of, guys taking, 2, 3, 5, 7 times to get on the test, or to get on the job. They had fallen out at different phases through there, whether it was the written test or something during the physical fitness test or something during their background disqualified them or whatever.
This is a test to even get into the academy?
Yeah, well, this is just part of the process. So back then I think it was like 15, 16 phases to get into the state police.
Wow.
So it was a 1.5-year process. So like I said, I'm like, okay, I'm going to, I still want to keep pursuing that because that was my dream, and, I want to try to follow up with it, and I made this decision to go in there to help me do that. So I'm going to at least give it a shot. And at the time, the Army had what was called a Try-1. And what that meant was I could get out for 1 year and get back in at the same rank and have no penalties or anything else there. Like, they would let you get out and right back in if you didn't like it. So hence the Try-1. Like, you could go out and try it, stuff in the civilian world, see if you liked it or everything else. If you did, great. Hey, go move on. If you don't, you come back in and you keep pursuing your career for there. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was. And so I capitalized on that, and that's when I started the process of that. So again, now this is coming up into 2007. So I started, the process there for the state police. Now, again, today everything is by email and everything else. So you have stuff by text message or email here, and you know right then and there within a couple minutes of what you're getting. Back in, everything was by U.S. mail. So, I did the online application, and then I waited for a letter to come in the mail or tell me to report to this date and time to take a test. So then I'd drive to that place, and I took the written test was the first thing. And then once you left there, you waited another couple weeks, and then you got another letter that said, okay, well, you advanced to the oral phase. You scored high enough. So then, hey, report this date and time to this place. So then I went there, and you did a scenario-based thing. They asked you a couple questions and stuff like that, and they graded you on that. So then they did a combined score and set out a ranking at that point in time. Then they mailed you a letter and said, hey, this is kind of where you stand. You make the cutoff, and you're going to move forward with the process.
Yeah.
So now, again, back then, for a testing cycle, we were between 17 and 19,000 applicants. Okay, so on that 17 to 19,000 applicants, you're coming down to about 150 guys are going to go to the academy out of there. So they're going to weed down that much.
Holy.
Okay. Now, not to get off of the thing here, but now we're lucky if we can get a couple hundred guys, and we're lucky to get 60 out of them. That's how much time to change.
So when you applied, they were picking from a pool of 17 to 19,000 applicants.
Correct. Yeah, back then.
And now the state police is lucky to pull together 300, like hundreds.
They're about 600, give or take.
And how often? Like, is that in a year?
Well, they try to run 4 classes a year. I mean,
Okay.
is what they want to do. They want to have a little bit of overlap there, and we try to push through. We've been fortunate here. The past couple governors have given us, enough funding there to keep, roughly 4 classes a year is, the ultimate number there.
So with the demand for applicants now, is it easier to get in to the state police now than it was then?
Yes and no. It's easier standard wise now because of our standards have lowered extremely there. We've done away with the tattoo policy. We did away with the background, or not the background, but the college requirement and certain things like that. So certain things have lifted in there, and they've changed and adapted a number of things there with it just to try to increase candidates to come into the job there.
Okay. So you decide, you go through your application, obviously you're accepted, and then you get into the academy.
Correct.
And so was that did that process take about a year?
It was about a year and a half. Yeah.
So
like I said, because you went on, like I said, there was multiple different phases you went through in there. Like I said, you had the written test, and then you had the oral interview, and then you went and did a physical fitness test, and then you did a background packet, and then you did a background investigation, and then you had to see psychological, and then you had to meet with the medical doctor, and you had to do a bunch of different phases in between there, and different checks and stuff like that. So
you had the year, the military gives you the try it for a year.
Correct, yeah.
So within that year, you realize you're getting in, or you've moved far enough in that process where you think, okay, I'm going to stay out, and I'm going to pursue the...
Correct. Yeah, and I didn't get a bona fide offer of employment until, obviously once you complete the thing, then the state the Commonwealth will mail you a bona fide offer of employment for acceptance and stuff like that. But, things were aligning there. So I was, working with my dad at that time, working construction with him. And then, like I said, obviously, and thankfully, I received the offer of employment there for them. And, and I took that and ran with it. And here we are.
I wanted to ask you, pertaining to the military, what do you think is the most important thing that the military taught you?
A lot of different things in there. I would say the biggest thing is attention to detail, and that the small things matter. You know what I mean? Accountability.
That applies to what you're doing now.
Yeah, looking back on it, how, especially, as you get into a professional career and stuff like that, that attention to detail, making sure everything's documented properly and everything's doing this and that, and it's correct into, what the best of your ability and stuff like that. And, even though it maybe seem de minimis at the time, but them small things add up, and just having accountability and holding yourself to a higher standard. has helped pave the way there to be a proven leader.
As a kid growing up in Somerset County, did you hunt?
I did, yes.
Did you spend any time on a farm at all?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of my buddies, their
Okay.
parents had farms and stuff like that.
And then, so your dad did construction. Do all those things help you in the military?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a wide variety of life skills, going in there. But yeah, definitely, working on a farm and working construction and working at a welding shop and hunting and fishing and all that stuff. Like I said, it all comes full circle then.
Did you find that the guys that excelled, I guess, came from a similar background?
Yeah,
I mean, like the blue collar background, I guess, for lack of a better word.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, you could tell the guys that were, had similar upbringings and had similar interests and stuff like that. Like I said, we all kind of, stay consistent as you move through there and everything else versus somebody that may have been brought up differently or, was there for the wrong reason or whatever the deal was, at that time.
So can you talk a little bit about your position within the state police now and how you got there?
Yeah. So, I started out like everybody, you start out as a patrol trooper. You do that for a minimum of 3 years. So you work the road, you handle all types of different calls from crashes to domestics to thefts and everything in between there. You're the first responder from all major incidents and everything else there for that. So, that's just part of our heritage and tradition, within the department. Everybody does that. You serve a minimum of 3 years on the road doing that. And then at that point in time, you can apply for specialty positions within there. We have a wide variety of specialty positions in the department itself there. So I stayed in patrol for a while. It seemed to work best for me, working permanent midnights at the time, starting off with a young family. That gave me the opportunity to be there during the day with the kids. If they were sick or had appointments and this and that, I could run them all there.
Yeah.
And then, when my wife came home, you could either take a nap at that point in time or whatever. And, it just worked out best for us there. So I rode that out for close to about 10 years.
Wow.
And then moved into what's called the criminal investigation unit there. So that's more of long-term, lengthy investigations. Where guys, they call it sitting in the back. It's in the back of the building there at Somerset. And we just do long-term and complex investigations. It require a lot of time just to sit there where, the patrol guy doesn't have that because, he's, taking a theft here 1 minute and then he's going to crash the next minute and stuff like that. So you don't got time to do multiple search warrants and sit down and do 10, 15 interviews and do stuff like that. So... so I worked back there for about 5 years as a criminal investigator. I passed on promotion there for a while just because of convenience. I'm living close to home there. I don't want to drive young kids and stuff like that. I just didn't want to miss that time, with them. So the stars all align. Basically I'm going to stay right around the same area there, promote and stay right in the unit there. So I knew that there was a guy retiring out of Evansburg. I was a crime supervisor up there. So promotion was coming around. I ended up taking promotion. I was fortunate enough to stay right there at Somerset for a brief period. I had to go back to patrol for about 2 weeks. Was able to test for his position and got the position there. So I moved up to Evansburg as the crime supervisor there back in 22. I was up there for a year approximately and ran that and then moved back down here to Somerset as the crime unit supervisor down here.
Okay. So as the crime unit supervisor, what's the responsibility?
So it's managing a lot of different things there. This county's kind of unique in the aspect that, we have 2 state prisons. So we have memorandum of understandings with them that we do certain types of investigations and everything out there. So we got a lot of stuff coming in from them. You have stuff coming in from CYS, different child cases out there. You have all patrols reports that are coming back in because essentially probably 90% of the stuff that they handle out there is a crime at the end of the day. They go out, even though they're in the patrol unit, they're going out and handling a theft. Well, that's a crime. Criminal mischiefs, a crime. An assault's a crime. All that stuff is a crime at the end of the day by definition. So all that stuff's coming back for approval. So, you got all these guys' reports. that are there. Plus, you have members of your own unit there that you're responsible for making sure that they have, their assignments and they're following up with their investigations and everything else there with that. So, like I said, it's a multitude of different things.
Now, how many guys do you have in that unit? Or?
I don't want to say specific numbers there, but there's a handful of guys there that are full time in there, and then, like I said, then the patrol guys there with that.
Did you look over the questions I sent you?
Very briefly.
Was there anything on there that we had to stay away from as it pertains to the state police aspect?
No, not too much there, other than just, like I said, the Trump assassination. Like I said, it's still an active investigation.
Yeah, and that's not even, that happened in Butler, PA.
Correct. Yeah.
But I mean, you had to been as shocked as everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to see your brothers going through something like that up there had to be. I don't even know how to describe how that might have felt for another trooper. Like, wow, what are these guys facing? What's the backlash that's going to come out against the department within the state? Were you able to kind of talk about how you felt about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can. And again, that's just a personal belief.
Details that you got, just general, I guess. I mean,
yeah, like I said, I mean, that's obviously it's a very unfortunate situation, that happened there. But yeah, like I said, that changed a lot of different things there for us, even as a department, for me as a civilian, looking at, how these things happen and, threat assessments and, individuals there and large groups and, just different things like that as well.
I'll ask you this. When he came up for 9/11, along with President Biden at that time, Vice President Biden, and Kamala Harris, was the state police involved with the Secret Service helping get that coordinated?
We do a lot of them. Like I said, they reach out. Again, at the end of the day, it's their primary responsibility is the dignitaries like that. Now, they reach out to us and to locals and stuff like that for assistance because, like I said, they're usually unfamiliar with the area and stuff like that. So, routes and stuff, how to get there, best locations for this, best locations for that, and just additional manpower to, carrying out their operations to maximize the security the best they can to make sure the safety of all, that are in attendance as well as the dignitaries that are there for that. So, yeah, like I said, we've had a fair amount of interaction with him, Johnstown was a hot spot there. Pittsburgh was a hot spot for multiple different rallies in that area there. Obviously, 9/11 and Flight 93 is a big, milestone there and, draws a lot of attention and stuff like that. So, we combat that every year.
Did you get to meet Trump?
Not
here?
personally,
Okay.
yeah. But, I've been at multiple different rallies where he was there. But, yeah, I didn't personally get to meet him.
Cool. I'm going to ask Irv how that was because I know.
Yeah.
But, you're working at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So with what you do in the department, investigations and stuff like that, can you talk, is ICE working in our area?
Not particularly. Like I said, we don't have I would say a high level of individuals here that meet the criteria that where ICE will be involved in there. They're in your bigger, sanctuary cities and stuff like that. They're out there now. Like I said, we have very minimal interaction with them for there, but it's not to say we won't get somebody traversing through our area that may come in, but it's not like a day-to-day operation there with that.
Yeah. I guess one of the questions I had was how does the state police work with the sheriff's office and or local municipalities?
Yeah, I think in our area here, we have a very great relationship with all of them there. We kind of work very closely with them. The sheriffs, the local departments, and everyone in between there. We try to work together just because we're in a rural area. We don't have a large, it's not like we're city police where we got, a couple thousand guys or, we're a big department where you got all these people out there and backup and that stuff. So you got to maintain a positive and good working relationship with these departments because, like I said, that could be your backup. You know what I mean? Like I said, you could have a sheriff's deputy out doing some serving paperwork or whatever he's doing, maybe transporting, and you're the whole way down here in Confluence, and he comes across you, and your next guy could be 45 minutes away. So you know, it's very crucial to maintain that positive relationship working with them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned being 45 minutes away. Yeah, that's tough. So you guys are spread, in a rural area like this, in a county that's largely rural. I mean, that's got to be a challenge.
It is, and just even looking at our road structures here, it's not like we got major roadways where you can get on and do that. You got 281 here that traverses up and down the road here. I mean, you know how that is at travel. It's not something you're going to run 90 miles an hour on. It's not an interstate where you're going to be doing that.
A tractor with a load of hay at some point.
Yeah, or even at nighttime. I mean, you got deer crossing in front of you every 3 miles. You know what I mean?
Where I live is a hot spot for deer run through this, out here. And I know it's
correct. So like I said, so you're trying to, you could be down at the Yawk on an incident down there, and next thing you know, you got a crash up on 56 in Ogle Township. I mean, and it's an hour and 20 minutes to get up there, and that's trying to move the best you can, but still being tactful and everything else there because, at the end of the day, you can go as fast as you want there, but if you don't get there, you're not helping anybody. All you're doing is creating more of a headache there with that situation. So, it's a give and take. I mean, you got to operate tactfully and smoothly there to get to where you're going there. But, yeah, geographically, I think it's like the size of Rhode Island. You know what I mean? The county.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never realized that.
Yeah, it's big. It's one of the larger counties in the Commonwealth there in itself there. So, yeah, like I said, and just not having big structured roadways, just puts you at an disadvantage because, like I said, I mean, you're taking back roads, cutting across here and there to get from A to B. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I named this the Route 281 podcast. And I should stop. I forgot. I totally forgot. But this is for you.
All right, thank you.
You get the Route 281 podcast hat. So
perfect. I appreciate it.
The only people that have that hat will be people that have been guests on this show. So whenever you see somebody with that hat on, you'll know that they were a guest on my show. Yeah. And then somebody asks you what that is, you can tell them.
Perfect.
I don't know if you're into hats, but yeah. So 281, as you know, like it kind of runs almost diagonal up through the majority of Somerset County. It ends in Stoystown.
Correct. Yeah, it ends up in about the borough of Stoystown. There is kind of where it ends right there.
And I didn't realize this until after I named the podcast Route 281 podcast because there is a Route 281 in the United States that runs almost perfectly north and south in this direct center of the country.
Really, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. But I thought that was pretty cool. So, what's interesting about our area and where we live is I think there's a lot of people in this area that are like most people everywhere. You get people doing a little bit of everything. This is a blue-collar town. The resources that we have here, the mountains, and the river, stream, or state park, stuff like that. There's so many things going on in Somerset County that I think make it kind of special.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you got hired on as a state trooper, were you able to pick where you could go at first, or how did you end up back in Somerset? I mean, or...
Yeah, you got to pick. So the way it kind of works with the department is anybody that's on the job obviously has seniority. So what they do is they put out an email closer towards your graduation date and saying, hey, we're expecting X amount of number of individuals that are going to graduate. So with that said, we're going to move so many people across the state. So if you're at a station you don't want to be at and you want to move somewhere else, put your transfer card in and you get to move. So everybody that's already on the job that has time on the job gets to move first based off of seniority purposes. So they put their cards in, and the department moves the number of individuals that they can at that point in time. Once the movements are done, the department then reaches out to the troop commanders that's in charge of each troop and says, hey, give me a list of your vacancies. So, for example, Troop A, which is what Somerset falls in, that covers all Westmoreland County, Indiana County, Cambria County, Somerset County, and then the turnpike from New Stanton to basically Bedford in conjunction with there. So the Troop A commander will say, hey, I need 5 guys, or I'm 5 guys short. Okay. And then everybody across the state submits their stuff in, and then people at Human Resources come up with this number and say, okay, this troop's down this many people, this one's down this many people, we got this many people, and okay, yeah, you might be down 5, but you're only going to get 3 because that's all we can give you because we got to keep the balance across the state there. So then what they come out to the academy and they say, okay, these are the available troops. Put your top 3 troops in. So, Troop A might not be open. So the next troop will be Troop G, which is down in Bedford. Maybe they're open. So I put in for there. So you list your top 3 troops that you want to go to there. And then usually they put you in one of them 3 places at that point in time. So then once you get in there, then it's up to the troop commander to decide what station you're going to go to optimize and maximize their operating procedures at that point in time.
Okay. What do you think the biggest challenge is in Somerset County right now? What's for you guys, what's the thing that like the what are the crimes that we see in Somerset County?
It's not so much just based off of our location. It's more of these internet crimes and these internet thefts and stuff like that is a big thing.
Really?
You hear about these gift card scams and everything else out there. So a lot of these are being operated and orchestrated out of different countries, and they have these people, especially now with AI and stuff like that. These individuals are going on all these people's Facebooks and hacking stuff, and they're making these. They get one little snippet of someone's voice, and then they can create a whole conversation. So they're talking to these people and saying, "Hey, your grandson's been arrested for this or that. We need $15,000, in order to release him and everything else there." So, these people are going out and purchasing these cards. That's why a lot of times if you go to the grocery store or dollar store, you'll see signs up, only X amount of number of, Google cards you can buy, or this type of gift card or whatever. They'll limit you on that just because, like I said, there's been, unfortunately, way too many. A lot of them are elderly. Like I said, there's all different types of people that, unfortunately fall victim to this, but, it more designed to target the elderly community in that aspect because of their beliefs of, everybody's truthful and honest and everything else there, and they're more susceptible to, a younger person where it's like, hey, maybe that doesn't sound right, but, an older person, they're this and that, and they believe them.
Another 30 years, we'll be wise to it. They're not going to get us. Hopefully there'll be something new, man. There'll be something new. That's crazy. I wouldn't have expected you to say that was. Well, I mean, I know that's around, but I mean, what's the drug traffic like?
That's a fluctuation. You know what I mean? Cause
it scares me to death, man, with young kids, and I have smart kids, but I just worry.
Yeah,
I tell my kid, don't ever eat anything that's not in a wrapper. And now you see they put this stuff on a rag and hanging on your car window, and you touch it, and it's got something on it.
And it's crazy. Like I said, them cases are few and far between. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but like I said, I mean, it's not something where, every other time you're going to go to Walmart, somebody's going to be hanging something off her. I mean, does it happen? It probably does, but not in that aspect of it. But yeah, the drug thing, it fluctuates. It's just like anything else. You get a couple people off, there's more people step right back in the next day to do that. It's an unfortunate situation because, like I said, I mean, these people have become victimized, and are for the addicts, I mean, they fall victim to that, and and that's what they do. I mean, they're just trying to survive for that. And feeding their addiction and everything else that goes along with that. So, like I said, it goes in waves. adjusted different things. A lot of times they used to say guys get them off the turnpike and stuff like that, but they knew, they do counter surveillance on us just like we do them. You know what I mean, type deal. So, they know that we got guys sitting out there, so they're going to take different routes, whether it's 30 or 22 or this or that. They're always rotating different things around.
That's crazy.
So so like I said, they change it up as well.
You turned me on to the RVAT program.
Correct.
And we did that at a church here close by. We don't go to that church anymore, but anyway, I found it to be helpful. Can you kind of explain what that is, and then who should do it, and then I guess my question is, do most schools in the area do it?
Yeah, at some point in time they do. So that's our risk and vulnerability assessment team there. And they're designed, they're a group of troopers that are specially trained in threat assessments and different things like that to go into offices and warehouses and schools and churches and just anything where large groups are going to gather and sit down with the people that are in charge there and say, hey, these are not so great layouts, or maybe you ought to change this or this or this for, if there will be a mass casualty incident or, some type of incident like that. These are the routes we would suggest you to take, or, these are the things we ask you to change and stuff like that. So they give input on that.
And they give you a very thorough report.
Correct.
That you can take to, whether you're a school, whether you're a church, whether you're a business, that you can go over it. And, it's good. You walk around with the state trooper, you look at everything.
Correct.
Everything from how many keys do you have to where are they, who has them.
Yep.
But one thing you'd think, bushes.
Yeah.
Big bushes outside the windows, like it could hide something.
Absolutely.
So it's why you see a lot of schools, you don't have a lot of high shrubbery around the schools that are at least paying attention to the RVAT report.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it opened my eyes to a few things where, like, 'cause I'm a worst case scenario kind of guy, conceal carry, my head's on a swivel. I like to face the door when I sit in a restaurant with my wife and kids.
Yep.
It's just my mindset. And so going to a church, I'm like, when you see these things unfortunately happen from time to time, I'm always like, okay, you got one eye open while everybody else is praying.
Correct.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to have that done and to see, and I encourage people to do it if you haven't, because it was definitely.
Yeah, they do a phenomenal job.
Like they help you think of things that you wouldn't.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just giving you that different perspective and different outlook on stuff. Like you may think, oh, we got a good thing and we got guys in place for this and that, and it's like, wow, well, our guys come in and do this. They really break it down. It's like, well, we were a mess. We weren't really prepared at all. Even though we thought we weren't even close.
Yeah.
Especially when you're presented with a couple scenarios and hey. What's your plan if this happens, and what's your plan if that happens? Well, I don't really know. Well, we probably ought to, and you probably ought to do this, and this. So, it changes that and gives these people a good, positive outlook.
It's good to think about, especially, you got a children's ministry, got kids in a school. You're responsible for kids. I know a school district where my kids go finally have a resource officer in the school building.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing. I think it's been it should have happened a long time ago.
Correct. Yeah, it's long overdue.
Yeah, I think there should be more of them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, like I said, it's long overdue. But again, unfortunately, just like the rest of the world, we're driven by money. You know what I mean? And it just costs money. To put boots on the ground and put guys in there that are properly trained and everything else. It costs money. It just to get them, gear and equipment and this and that and everything they need and metal detectors and stuff. It costs money. To do that. So to work that in, and everybody's held up budget. It's just, what's your budget going to be from this year to next year, and you're going to be able to manage it. And, it's sad that we have to put a price tag on our safety, but, that's just reality.
Does the state of PA do a pretty good job of giving the state police enough money to, are you guys well-staffed?
Yeah, we are. And like I said, the governor has been, right now, he's been phenomenal and pushing out as much money as he can for us. Getting different trainings and stuff like that, these academies, classes and stuff in there for that.
Does any part of the county fall into that at all? Do you get any, everything comes from the state?
Correct, yeah.
Correct, okay. Yeah. Do you have any? Do you have any favorite shows, cop shows?
I don't. Honestly, I was never really even into them, just because, like I said, I didn't watch a lot of television growing up there. I mean, did I watch some episodes? Yeah, sure. But then as you got on and you're like, this isn't really even anywhere close to reality. They have these shows where, incidents happen and they test certain things and they tell you the answer within, 18 minutes of doing that. And, it's there. Well, that's great on TV, but in reality, that's 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, right. The same for me. Like, I get asked, do you watch HGTV? Because some of my customers will say, "Oh, I saw this," and that's fine. Yeah, it gives you good ideas sometimes. But I don't. I don't watch it because you can't build a house in a half an hour television show, and they make it look like it's so easy. Well,
absolutely.
But I don't. But one other thing that I wanted to ask you was, I don't know. One, what is a citizen's arrest? Okay, and then two, can you talk about castle doctrine? And I know it's a law, and I'm not asking you to interpret law or anything like that, but like as it, what is it in a nutshell? And is it in its law in Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it is a law in Pennsylvania, and that's the right, basically, to protect your home, to where it says that you don't have to retreat. In certain areas where they say, hey, you had the opportunity to walk away from that situation, and you could have walked away from it. If you're out in the middle of somewhere and they say, hey, you were confronted by somebody, and you had an out, maybe you could have just took that out in there. But that castle doctrine kind of implies like, hey, if this is your ground here, you don't have to retreat from there. So if somebody's trying to take, that property from you, enter it to commit any type of crime or something, you have the right to defend yourself and the people inside there for that. But again, I would defer to counsel for the exact
right. But I just
recommendations, I would say, for that and guidance there. Because like I said, it can kind of be misconstrued there a little bit because, like I said, some people think that you get a hall pass, which you don't, and that's what I would encourage people is to educate themselves on that, not by reading them, but to consult with an expert, someone that has a law degree that can precisely say, these are what your grounds are and what you can do. Because, again, there's these myths out there that people think that, you can John Wayne it. If somebody steps on your property, you can blow them away. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
You better have reasonable grounds and be able to articulate certain things. But again,
at
the end of the day, you don't have to retreat is what it more or less boils down to.
It is. I mean, it's a scary deal. Have you, you familiar with the Byrna Ungun?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, there's a billboard, and I hear this on advertisement. So it's a kinetic ammo.
Okay.
Or I think you can get a gas, but and actually is what I would recommend for like churches and stuff because you don't have to apply deadly force.
Okay.
Kinetic ammo that maybe just put somebody down till you can get some zip ties on them or something. If you're and that's one of the things that the state trooper recommended to us at the church. Hey, have a couple zip ties because we're an hour away.
Correct.
If a couple church members got to jump on a guy, and put him down. But that, I didn't know if you were familiar with that. I don't have one.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, you wouldn't have to have those dire consequences then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and there's a lot of less lethal options out there.
Yeah.
To pursue as well. Like I said, it doesn't have to always be a lethal picking.
Did you have to get tear gassed and I'm sorry, pepper sprayed and
yeah, I got both. I got the tear gas in the military there. Like I said, we went into the chamber and stuff like that. You got that as well. And
how bad does that suck?
It sucked, but it was it was just something that made you appreciate it and understand what it can do. So that that's the whole thing. If you don't experience this stuff, you don't. At least my personal experience is you don't fully, truly appreciate, the consequences that it can do at that point in time. So, when you deploy CS gas, you don't know what it really does until you actually breathe it in and understand that it takes your breath away, it incapacitates you, it does this, and this, which is what it's designed to do. But, until you truly suffer that, it's a unique experience, I'll put it that way.
One of the golf courses I worked at, we had a goose dog on the property. It was a Australian Shepherd. So we had it trained Actually, we had a guy come and train us on how to train the dog
Okay.
with a remote collar. And they're super smart animals, and they're just made to work.
Yeah.
But he made us put that collar on our hand and go through every level. So it's similar. You don't you don't get to push that button until you know
Correct.
what you're doing to that dog.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we went through every level. He's like, just hang on to it.
Yeah.
It lit us up.
Yeah.
Which is good because I mean, would never, it's good to know that it really doesn't hurt you. It's not going to hurt. It just gets their attention.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
So, Are you doing what you imagined you'd be doing when you were younger?
Absolutely.
So you had I mean, you said you at 16 years old. That's pretty.
Yeah.
You had that
Yeah, and even
decision.
before that, like I said, I mean, I probably started, I would say, around 12 years old or something. You see a state trooper here and there, and
Yeah.
and that was just something I did, and that was what I was hoping to do, and thankfully the cards fell in the right direction for me, and everything worked out the way it did, and I'm here.
Yeah. Do you guys do any educational opportunities for young people? What can a young person shadow? Can they get involved in some way? Because
they are
I gotta
starting
say,
to do.
16 years old is young to make that decision. That's awesome that you're able to do that. But there are a lot of kids that really, young people that don't really know what they want to do. I mean, I'm 43. I don't know what I want to do yet, but
Correct. Yeah, and it has come a long way. We never really did the shadowing program just for liability purposes.
Yeah.
There now, I know local departments across the Commonwealth and across the United States do offer that in some capacity or another there, but the PSP never did that. Now we are offering different programs out there. They have the Hill Impact program. They have some stuff at the academy and everything else there. I think it's a tour of life, they call it, and stuff like that. So I just encourage people, if it's something you're doing, look up one of our recruiters. They're on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, X, whatever it is now.
yeah, maybe
stuff
you
like
can
that.
give me a couple of those, and I'll post them in the show notes.
Yeah.
So if somebody sees this and they're interested,
Yeah, like I said,
know
you
it.
reach out to one of our recruiters. Like I said, they'll answer the questions. That's what they're geared up for. If there's any upcoming events where you can go and kind of get an idea what goes on there or what might go on at the academy or this or that, you can go there and see firsthand that they put on there to kind of educate people, to give them kind of an idea there to that, because it's a huge investment for the state. You know what I mean? It costs a lot of money just to even put you through the process. So that's the whole thing. You got to kind of break it down is from the time you submit that initial application, you're an investment to the state because, like I said, they're spending time to send you to the next phase, into this phase, and get people to look into you, and then get you to the academy and everything else there. So, they're investing a lot of money into you. So again, just like anything else, they want, not to sound negative, but they want their money back out of you. You know what I mean? So they want to spend that money into you, but yet they want a product back out. So It's worthwhile for them to do that, to do it. So like I said, that's why they're, part of it is trying to get these programs in effect here. So people have an idea, and we don't lose a lot of people. That's the biggest thing they try to eliminate is, hey, we don't want guys to go there and within 2 days they're leaving the academy, or 2 weeks or something like that, they're like, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or something like that. They want you to know the best of your ability going in there. Now, again, it's not going to be the exact thing, but at least to give you a heads up and understanding of day-to-day operations, physical demands, educational demands, and all that other stuff. So you get there and you're not blindsided, and you're like, hey, man, I'm out. And then they're like, well, we just spent all this money, and we've been tracking you for a year now to get to this point here. We don't want you to leave.
Right.
So
How young can somebody start to do that?
you can start around like 19, 20 going in there. Now, you have to wait till they go to 21st birthday or the end of the academy.
Okay.
Now, that's more because the firearms law with the concealed carry and stuff like that, you have to be 21 years of age and stuff like that. And you have to also enter the academy by your 40th birthday. You can go up until the age of 40, but you have to be in the academy by your 40th birthday there, because we have a mandatory retirement at age 60. At age 60, no matter what day that is, you're done.
No kidding.
Yep, you're completed at that point in time. So the way our retirement is, it's usually 20 years, 50%, 25 years, 75%. So in order to get that minimum retirement of 20 years, you have to be in the academy by the start of your 40th birthday, so that way you can get 20 full years and be able to get out of that 60th birthday.
Okay. Awesome.
So, yeah.
How important is a military background to becoming a state trooper? Is it very helpful, or is there certain?
Yeah, it is, because again, it's they claim to be paramilitary, and a lot of stuff we do is paramilitary. So understanding why we do certain things and rank structure and order and stuff like that, it goes a long way with having that military background. But again, it's not an end all be all or anything else, like I said, to go in there. But just, understand, hey, I'm going to be at the academy for a while, and I'm going to do physical fitness, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be stressful, and I'm going to have long days and everything else there. The reasons why it's there, you learn that in the military very early on rather than going there. So, to me, it makes it a lot more easier going there saying, hey, yeah, I get it. I'm going to be at the academy. I'm not going to be able to do this, and this for a while. But that's just to make sure that I'm able to survive out there in the real world and, make good, solid decisions for the best interests of the department, myself, the victims, and everything else that you're out there, under stressful conditions.
Well, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
There is a lot of crossover in the physical requirements, the mental requirements, like you said, being able to react quickly under stress.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, it makes a ton of sense that it would be helpful. What would you recommend that a kid go into or a young person go into the? I keep saying kids. I have kids. They're nowhere near ready for the military or state police. But a young person to go into the military and or state police.
Yeah, absolutely. The state police is different. I mean, that's something. Hey, that's what you're going to do. You're going to be a police officer. You're not going in there to do. I mean, yeah, we have specialty positions within there, but for the first little bit, you're going to be a cop, and you're going to have to want to do that or anything else. Where with the military, that's kind of like a wide range of different jobs and stuff like that. So, I've talked to a lot of kids over the years that are kind of undecisive. Hey, I don't want to go to school, but yet I don't really know what I want to do and everything else. It's like, hey, get a general thing, go into the military. What do you kind of like or have a little bit of interest in? Get in there and then explore some other stuff. Hey, maybe I want to go to the Army Corps of Engineers. I want to build stuff. Or I want to be a mechanic, or I want to be a pilot, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. The military has a lot of the same options you do out here in the civilian world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the thing I push for them is you go in there, a lot of times you're getting state-of-the-art equipment. You're getting paid to do this job. You're getting a rewarding factor out of it. You're either going to be a veteran or you're going to be some sort of member of the military. You can come out and hold yourself to that standard as of being a prior service member or a veteran or a combat vet or whatever your designation is at the thing. And it's something that's never going to go away from you. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, you can see, without investing a lot of your own money, too, what it is. Well, I don't really like that, but, I'm going to do it for a year or two. And then, hey, I met some buddies over here, and they're doing this, and that seems cool, and I'm going to do that. And maybe that piques your interest, and you go over there and do that, and that ends up being your career. It's something you might not even have thought of, 3 years prior when you signed up for that. But like I said, you got in there, you're getting paid, you're getting some good training, some discipline, which I think a lot of people still need, and everything else there. And like I said, it exposes you to different things. You get, depending on what branch you go into. I mean, you could be all over the world. You could be going to some different countries and stuff like that. So you get to travel a good bit on the department's expense as well too, which is nice as well. So I'd push more for the military than the police. Like I said, the police is something where, hey, I know I want to do that, because once you get in there, you're committed. Now, like I said, do we have specialty positions? Yeah, but you got to put your boots on the ground for a while and before you can branch off there. Where in the military, I think your options are not endless, but you have a wide variety of stuff you can go and explore and do as well.
Yeah. I get torn, I guess, sometimes. I kind of realize that. I'm glad you pointed that out, because it makes total sense. I've mentioned to my kids, even if you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor.
Yep.
There's an opportunity there to serve your country and learn and to be to serve in that way, or to get help with school or training. I think it's a good thing. I think, and I'm excited about like the future of America, and I mean, we've just seen a recent major uptick in recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's happened in the last month.
Correct. Yeah, the numbers went through the roof right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think people are just waiting to serve America first.
Yeah.
I think, and I try to raise young patriots who know the value, like what that flag means.
Absolutely.
I every time I build a front porch for somebody, they get an American flag.
Oh, nice.
So they get what does that cost me? A couple bucks.
Yeah.
But if you don't already have one on your front porch, well, guess what? And I used to have a guy build them out of wood and stain them and paint, and it could be a decorate. But now I purchased the flag that hangs off the post.
Nice.
And I give it to every customer that I build a porch for.
That's awesome.
I don't always build porches, but
Yep.
my kids know that. So yeah, we are grateful for your service.
Thank you.
Not only in the military, but as you young kids, and you lead a bunch of guys in the department, and so we're proud of you, and we're thankful to know you, and thankful that you came to do this and talk, because it's important, and I want people to know that there are people here in our local area that are just doing pretty awesome things. And,
Absolutely.
So. Joe, thank you so much.
Yep, it's been my pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you very much,
sir.
sir.
Okay.